Сегодня 3 июня 2025 года. В Астане жарко, около 30 в тени. Нахожусь я в парке, всем известный вот этот слоник розовый. По-моему, раньше он был зеленого цвета, потом его перекрасили в розовый, точно не скажу. Центральный парк города Астаны. Итак, хотелось бы здесь посмотреть, как ловят радиоволны во всех диапазонах. Ну, конечно, в это время на коротких волнах мало радиостанций, наверное. Тем не менее, давайте послушаем.
Есть моменты, когда все должно быть безупречно. Вкус, аромат, подача и, конечно,
сберегательных биткоин-счетов в Государственном банке КХД АОРОС, позволяющих обменивать биткоины на доллары внутри вклада. Эти инициативы направлены на интеграцию криптовалюты в экономику страны. Государственная компания DataPrev в Бразилии запустила пилотную программу D-Wallet, позволяющую гражданам продавать свои обезличенные данные бизнесу. Чем же ты так жестоко?
миллионы тенге на шопинг.
Проект главного дворца Фетичуй выполнил Джузеппе Кастильоне. Император Дзянун проявлял особый интерес к европейскому искусству фонтанов. По его указу перед парадным подъездом главного дворца был спроектирован большой фонтан в виде пирамиды. Его украшали бронзовые скульптуры 12 китайских зодиакальных животных. Они были не только символом 12-летнего цикла, но и указывали время суток. Каждый час из пасти одного из животных извергалась струя воды, а в полдень воду испускали все 12 знаков гороскопа. Юаньминьюэн стал не только одним из известных парков Китая, но и его крупнейшим, хоть и недолговечным музеем. Виктор Гюго говорил о том, что...
Fantastic, but actually there are, these sneaky suckers in there.
Yeah, so basically when, let's say, if you want something healthy today, I'm going to go for the convenience store for a bowl of green salad or a bowl of just, chicken with broccoli on the rice. But, of course, it sounds very healthy and low calorie, but after a decent count of all of these maybe sandwiches, you may discover that even without accounting for the calories in the salad dressing, a sandwich labeled as maybe 150 kilocalories actually contains over 230 kilocalories, while a salad with maybe creamy dressing ends up being 500 plus calories. And maybe different types of dressing can give you even more of your calories intake. So that means for those relying on convenience store meals, they may be consuming nearly 50% more calories per meal than they think.
It's so not fair, but yet it also kind of makes sense, right? We see, as human beings, we see a label that says low fat, and we think, woohoo, diet. Not necessarily. It just means there's low fat. But what about not equal no sugar? So there's all these other types of tricks, if you want to call them tricks, or ways to promote products in a healthy way when maybe overall it's...
Yeah, a few weeks back or a couple of months back, possibly, we talked about temple foods on this show, how it's becoming something that is popular and young people sometimes flock to these temples not only for the spiritual aspect of things, but for the lean foods that are presented there. And apparently there are hidden calorie bombs there too.
Oh yeah. So imagine, and as we discussed about it, it's served in temples, are typically vegetarian food and made with simple ingredients like rice, paired with a few seasonal fresh vegetables or just soup or meat. And there are no complex seasonings, right? No artificial flavoring. It's what you might call a humble, honest meal. But imagine they are just staple food, and maybe you are eating a staple food with another staple food. A lot of carbs, right? So carbohydrates. Yes, and then they can maybe transfer to or just get into more sugar in your body, and then
or oil. Right, oil. Do you know how many calories are?
I have no idea.
100
olive oil is quite healthy.
It's good for you.
But you can't drink it.
Well, I suppose you could. I don't know. But 1 tablespoon, according to the internet, is 119 calories. So
that's a lot.
2 tablespoons, that's a half a meal almost, isn't it, in terms of the calorie count? Yeah, so calories can come from many different sources, and those can add up quite quickly.
Yeah, and also it's probably not all that useful if we're completely fixated on the number of calories or the number of what was the other thing you mentioned just now?
The oils?
The oils, like our lives should not be dictated by numbers. I mean, well, okay, no, that's just what I think, but what do you guys think? How can we keep our weight in check without falling into these traps?
Read the labels, as annoying as that can be, and time-consuming and difficult to see. The labels are so small, and I have to use my smartphone camera, take a picture, and then zoom in on it to see the labels, because the print is so small sometimes. But if you really want to know what's inside the food that you're eating, then that's a good way to go about it. They say, too, that when you're trying to eat healthy with these salads and wraps and these you are missing out on carbs, then it could cause you to eat more because you get hungrier faster. But again, that's a why. So, yeah. Advice out there, but I think the point here is just read the label so you know what's inside. My biggest takeaway from this chat today is about the overweightness of the packages and stuff. I had no idea about that, but it absolutely makes sense from their point of view.
And also maybe be conscious of what you are intaking and use portion control as your primary tool. Since most foods are just heavier than labeled, as we're discussing it. A 30 to 50% calorie buffer, and make that in your mind. If it says like 300 kilocalorie, it estimate as closer to 400 to 450.
Yeah, make that assumption.
Yeah.
Also, eat. This is always the advice, right? They say eat slower. Have you ever heard about this? That you're full 20 minutes before your brain knows you're full. You've heard that before, right? And I thought, oh, is that just a myth? I looked it up, and this is from Live Science, and this is what they say. Yeah, it actually does take, on average, 20 minutes for your body to send signals to your brain to indicate that you've had enough to eat, that you're full. Of course, that's going to depend on your diet and things like that, your typical eating habits. There are other factors, but just generally speaking, the advice is take the time to eat your food, chew your food, swallow your food slowly, and then you'll realize that you're full when you're actually full.
That actually leads to, I think, another thing that I read before. Always stay a little bit hungry. Of course, both
and foolish.
Yes, I was saying both psychologically and physically, but now we're talking about it physically. So stay a little bit hungry.
Sounds like good business advice too.
Yeah, no matter it's like after a meal or just before bed, it can help your maybe some.
I'm not saying it's bad advice.
Build your diet in a healthy way. Thing of everything, right? Just grains and carbs, or that's really important. And in our Chinese diet, sometimes.
Вот такой радиоприем в Центральном парке возле монумента «Розовый слоник». Или как это называется, сооружение. Возможно, это фонтан был. Первого июня здесь было очень много людей, но сейчас немноголюдно. Это вот известные лебединые домики. Они много отплыли. В общем, всем спасибо за просмотр видео. Может быть, в этой локации еще сниму и ретекис позже, а может, не подумаю. Ну, всем удачи, любви и терпения. Все, пока-пока.